Sometimes it takes a while. There we go. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to Real Time Talk. I'm Quentin Anderson, the host of today's show. Today we have Chad Ritsema. He is an accomplished innovator and creative leader with 20 years of experience in digital experiences, creative direction, and visualization. Partnered with global brands, agencies, and startups across diverse industries, including automotive, technology, and consumer goods. Specialized in driving innovation, fostering creativity, and leading digital transformation. Chad, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah.
Sorry for that introduction. It seemed like a lot after you read it back to me. Maybe that was over the
Well,
top.
believe it or not, you're actually on the shorter end. Some people give
Okay, good.
like three paragraphs, and we'll just pick a couple sentences. But I do want to dive into your unique and interesting background. So, can you kind
Sure.
of just walk us through some of your work history and projects that you've been a part of that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, you bet. Well, I started out my career in Chicago at Leo Burnett Advertising Agency. When I was there, I was actually studying film, believe it or not. So I have a film degree. I don't have an engineering or software engineering degree or an architectural degree or anything like that. So I started out in the creative space. I spent a couple of years at Leo Burnett learning the advertising business, marketing business. At that same time, I graduated with film degree, then went right into multimedia design, working with, remember, Flash or Splash or Macromedia and all that, the whole product line there from Dreamweaver and Director and all that stuff. So did that, building websites, working for smaller agencies here in West Michigan, working with larger clients like Herman Miller, Steelcase, Wolverine Worldwide, which is a large shoe company, Amway, which is direct selling. So I was able to work with a bunch of different clients here in West Michigan and really kind of cut my teeth on different types of multimedia delivery content, creating really cool presentations, animations. But then at that point, probably the early approaching the mid 2000, 2010 or so, started to really kind of pick up more along the lines of digital filmmaking. It's a lot easier, a lot more accessible to make really cool videos, high quality videos using like red cameras. So I got into producing, creative directing, working for different clients. And then it was about 2000, well, about 2014 or 15 is when I kind of got into the whole XR space and started to get really curious about how to create branded marketing material, storytelling, through that medium. So that's when I started picking up, Unity, started playing around with those platforms, moving into Unreal. Uh, Man, take me back here. From there, that's where, kind of having that background in building solutions for clients, that's when I got recruited by Lucid Motors. I worked there for about 3.5 years before taking the position here at Canada Design, which is an AEC firm where we have a bunch of different studios across the US and in India. And so I've worked in a bunch of different industries from direct marketing, for sure. Actually worked for a vacuum company, Bissell. Maybe some of you have heard of Bissell.
Mm-hmm.
I led their creative team there. I developed their in-house creative team there as well. And so it's been speckled with fun projects, always being curious, always being tech savvy, tech minded, and understanding different workflows, and being able to help my clients and the companies that I work for to kind of iterate and move forward with different initiatives. I don't know if that's always served me well. You almost feel like you're a jack of all trades, master of none, but it definitely keeps things interesting.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm curious when you got into XR, how did that happen? Was it just your curiosity of learning new technologies, or were some of your clients, customers, companies that you were working for, was a conversation brought up there, and then you went and did some R&D, or how did you kind of get into XR?
It was kind of through so at first, a lot of my clients, they didn't want to make that initial investment, right? Into like it's a lot of money to develop something that's truly immersive and to put it in, into a headset and to deliver it via Steam or whatever you're trying to deliver it on. So we always found the best way as kind of a gateway was to work in 360 video and to deliver simple applications. If you remember Google Cardboard,
Hmm.
to get that, and then snowballed beyond that. Like now create us an app, now create us an experience. And so I built out VR rooms for two different clients. And so I had multiple headsets. So it was more part of their experience center. So they would bring clients, they would bring their sales force, through this large, experience center with all different types of content and interactive monitors and stuff. And then I built out their VR rooms for them, multiple headsets running off of a kiosk.
And what is your experience introducing new technologies into a firm that you're working with? Do you find that you're sort of ahead of the curve, and then you'll have to take sort of stepping stones in order to get technology adopted?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts or your experience introducing new tech into a company?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge to, a lot of people want to talk about, what's the ROI. It's like you're not even close to that yet. The
Mm,
conversation is about how do you surprise and delight your clients? How do you get them excited? How do you um, help your teams, innovate and learn new technology and become proficient at that technology? How does that become part of your retention conversation at your agency or your company you're working for? And typically what it starts out as kind of a pilot, right? And you're reaching out to different companies who are really interested in working with you. If it's the Epic Games of the world, if it's the NVIDIAs of the world, or whoever it is, or Amazons of the world, striking up a conversation with them. Say, we have a unique position. We're kind of first in our industry. We're really excited about this X technology. We'd love to be part of some type of pilot, leveraging your know-how, your engineering capabilities, um, and how do we create something together, and then working towards some type of MVP that we can both kind of, work off of.
and do you prioritize customer first, technology second, or company first, technology second? Do you have any kind of priority list that you're thinking about when you're, yeah, whenever new technology is involved, or is it just sort of whoever feels like the right technology partner?
Well, selfishly, it's always about the technology for me first,
Yeah.
and trying to create those use cases, and then kind of dragging people along, to help them understand, the importance of being in this space. And as most of you probably know, being on that cutting edge and being in innovation, it can be hard, right? So it's hard to scale it, to sustain it, to keep that investment going.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always curious your thoughts on cutting edge because you're obviously a cutting edge individual, but then you run into the challenge of, like we were just talking about, adoption and getting things rolled out. So what was sort of your selling, or what sold you on real time, and then how are you then having those conversations with other people? Um, yeah.
Sure. And most of it comes down to accessibility and work, like the workflow, designing that workflow, within the agency, getting that stood up. And everything here is a crawl before you run scenario. We're not, it's like I don't make these huge promises. I go, these are the stages we're going to move in. These are the steps we're going to go. And yeah, sometimes, and which is safe, right? Because you're going to get to a point where, yeah, this is totally just coming off the rails as a failure. Let's just move on to the next thing, or let's shelve it, and then so on and so forth. Um, so it's important for, just the team in general to understand the workflow. And then it becomes that client part of it. It's like, how do we serve up this content? And it's always about quality, and this is the fidelity, the quality, the best it can be, and being able to just serve that up, to our clients, or, to our prospective sale, or whoever, if it's the sales team or whatever it is you're trying to communicate, or within training, whatever it is, that you're able to meet them where they are on whatever device they're on. Um, so, we talked earlier on about Cloud XR, being able to deliver to that platform, being able to deliver to mobile, desktop, whatever it is. I that's always what I've kind of been able to champion and have those discussions, and say the importance of it and build those use cases. So,
Yeah. For some of the people that may be listening that may not necessarily understand how hard it is to deliver a high fidelity experience to an end customer, can you kind of walk us through, what exactly Cloud XR is and how this technology is used to deliver high fidelity experiences to customers?
yeah, sure. One simple use case that we were working on at Lucid Motors, being able to take our high resolution, high quality 3D models and environments that we were sharing in studio on hardware using HTC Vive Pros. So we had well, here I can probably show you, what that
Hmm.
looked like real quick, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Give you some context. Let me share that. All right, I hope everybody can see that.
Yes, we can.
So great. So this middle image here is what we call the VR Buck. So it's the interior of the Lucid Air, which is a sedan, EV
Hmm.
sedan. In each one of our 30 studios at the time, we had this VR experience. Um, so people were able to put on the headset. It was a curated experience. We used an application on an iPad to help drive the experience seen through the headset.
Hmm.
So we didn't have to worry about the fumbling around, um, using controllers. It was a great experience early on when we did not have any vehicles in the showrooms, or if we did have, a prototype in the showrooms, you couldn't open the doors, you couldn't open the trunk or frunk. So it was a great way for people to walk around, open doors, see the scale, understand it in different lighting environments, and of course to configure it with different colors and rims and wheels and all that. So then we wanted to take this content that was delivered in the studio and be able to stream that to clients. Um, we found that to be, you know, um, kind of an interesting proposition to be able to send somebody a headset or to be able to be anywhere on location, or if we were doing a pop-up somewhere for them to put on, let's say, a MetaQuest headset and be able to have something streamed into the head and have them experience the same experience that you would have in a studio. Again, that was early on. We're talking, well, I don't want to say it's too early, like two years ago, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know that there's some different platforms working on this right now and trying to spin this up. We're part of those conversations, and within the AEC, visualizing your building and sharing that with your clients, being able for them to put on a headset and have that streamed and seamlessly experienced with low latency, being able to walk around in the environment to give you feedback while they're there and have it be a higher fidelity, have those materials there and have the lighting and to be able to manipulate that and to show them different times of day and turn lights on and off. And that's harder to experience in something like the wild, that type of immersive VR, you know, um, architectural experience. So that's how we're kind of thinking about Cloud XR at this time and being able to serve up content that way. It's, yeah, I mean, there's a couple different use cases out there already. It's always interesting to see what the return is going to be on that. I don't get too worried about that because if it's about the one client being able to get really excited about it, answer a bunch of their questions, help move the design process forward, and or to take it to a philanthropic event, like they need more funding for the building, and to have that fundraising experience with people in the environment, whatever that help that sales, and that's where it lives beyond just the design and the build. The data, the 3D data moves beyond it and becomes a different additional value to the whole process and to the firm. So I'm always, kind of always thinking about how do we bake in this technology to make things easier for
Hmm.
people.
And when we're talking about high fidelity, what is your opinion on, especially with both Canon Design and Lucid, the importance, and these are two different industries, obviously. Why do you think having a visual be in high fidelity is so important? Couldn't we just use like a WebGL or a something else? And still deliver the content and the idea, but you're not going to have ray trace shadows, you're not going to have as detailed textures and materials. uh, what do you think high fidelity does?
Um, that's a really great question, man, because you could almost break it down by price point, maybe. I mean, when you're trying to sell, $150,000 vehicle, you know, people are very particular, and they want to make sure things are true to color. And so it could be the same, same when people are investing millions and millions of dollars in a structure, same, right? They want to be able to walk away, with confidence that they've made the right decisions. And when things are lower fidelity, you run the risk because they don't have a full understanding. You might understand, as a designer, like, oh, I know totally what that's going to look like, but they don't, guaranteed.
Yeah, yeah. There's less left to the imagination.
Yeah.
When you have a photorealistic representation of, be it an automobile or a building, and so yeah, that's usually one of the use cases that we see most often is because it is a building or an automobile. There's a much higher threshold of quality expected in the deliverable.
Yeah, it takes a lot of that guesswork out, and especially when you don't have products that are fully, or on the road yet, or in a dealership yet, or studio. Same with the building. You're helping, people visualize the possible, and to paint that story for and to tell that story for them, which I think is also key to part of this that might get missed, with some architectural firms is this, your ability to tell these amazing stories about these facilities. It's not only the story of the company building it, but it's as simple as creating a story of the people who work in or live in it or time of year. I mean, you can manipulate all of that and help explain and then, what that looks like and feels like to people. And it just helps when it's high fidelity.
Yeah. And so when it comes to Canon design, I'm curious, what was the impetus or what was the reason for kind of bringing you aboard? And then what are some of the company's goals and missions that you're helping and supporting right now?
Sure, sure. Um, so when it comes to, I have to ask my boss, but I think it was because, I like to think that, kind of an innovative guy and kind of thinking, out of the norms when it comes to certain industries,
Mhm.
and to bring that. But really my main focus well, initially is to spin up our use of XR technology across the firm and scaling that, as well as how do we start to understand, use, and uh, integrate digital twins, very robust digital twins, with predictive modeling and all that stuff. So and how do we visualize that? And then how do we move it into that space and become subject matter experts, as well as training on twin motion, training, working on workflows, standardizing workflows. Here, I'm sure like most, large AEC firms, have different studios that work at, you know, quality levels, being able to share from one side of the firm to the other, this is an amazing workflow. This is how you can quickly get to this fidelity, this quality using these steps. And so that we kind of have a standard, again, standard workflow so that we can then move quickly if we need to, if it's part of the discussion to move into high fidelity, high quality, pixel streamed experience. And so that and we're not doing rework and we're not doing all the churn. It's in a place, we have that established workflow that we can then kind of move things forward relatively quickly. Yes, I understand not every work, everything is perfect all the time. You do run into speed bumps, but we do our best to kind of put uh, those foundational steps in.
And do you imagine the individuals that are working in Revit, for example, do you envision them also then extending their capabilities to also to Twinmotion and to Unreal, or do you think this is a different team with different objectives, or
Well, I feel like any designer, any architect can quickly move into twin motion. That's just me. I think that's a relatively easy step for them to do. Now, if we're talking about Unreal, it's a whole different, level that would probably look to it to outsource or another team to help develop those experiences. Um, at least, that's my, the way that, yeah, I would be pretty confident saying that, with my time here at Canon, that's probably a safe kind of a safe workflow, a safe flow, because if the architects can show the design intent, put things in context in twin motion, and put all the materials, and it makes it so much easier, once you have to move into UE and you don't have to make all that guesswork or redesign, you have a better understanding of that product. So you rely maybe more on the engineers versus the creative side of things. It might speed up a little bit.
Right, right. And you'd mentioned two terms that I'd like to explore a little bit more. So you talked about digital twins and XR.
Mhm.
And then for digital twins, you're talking about predictive modeling.
Yeah.
Could you give an example of what predictive modeling is, or how you think your team may be using that?
Yeah, I mean, predictive modeling within digital twins is, it's a big discussion right now. Like, how do you begin to integrate those simulations and the wear and tear on a facility over time?
Hmm.
And to begin to talk about, when do we start to replace flooring, or when do we replace certain hardware, door, whatever it is, right? So if it's the HVAC system, like, I mean, through a digital twin, you are able to maintain, whether that's running efficiently or not, and whether or not that needs to be replaced just by the IoT, the data being fed back into the loop, back to the digital twin. Um, so really, when it comes to predictive modeling and those simulations, that's something that each company needs to evaluate what would be the most important to them. As that physical real building lives, how does that data get shared and connected to the digital twin so that both can be maintained and updated for future state, for future improvement, for future renovation, um, stuff like that.
And do you think it's the more traditional workflow to use BIM and digital design to get us to the point to where we can construct the building, and then once it's done, then the BIM the BIM models, the digital design just kind of gets shelved? Do you feel that's kind of like maybe the traditional way of doing it?
Yeah, that's definitely the traditional way of doing it. And that's why the discussions around like Omniverse and platforms like Ursuleo and Siemens, their product. There's different products out there, and even that's I think Tandem for Autodesk. There's a couple different digital twin platforms. I'm sure there's quite a few more. But visual, just talk about visualizing them, because I know that there's also non-visual digital twins that just do the IoT connection
Hmm.
reporting. But when visualizing, yes, how does it live beyond just shelving the BIM, that data, and making it a viable, livable, continue virtual version of the physical so that it again can be maintained and as intelligent as it needs to be in order to do the predictive modeling for the future of that facility. Um, yeah, I mean it's again it's a interesting space. It's an interesting discussion. I know some companies are doing it. I know that in manufacturing, using Omniverse, using NVIDIA's Omniverse is a very powerful tool. I know they do a better job in the manufacturing space at using these tools than, let's say, a hospital would. So and that's where there's a lot of potential, here, with pixel streaming and being able to serve that up. I see that as kind of a whole wide open space that needs to be explored and continue to be discussed and pushed and innovated on.
Yeah, and that was kind of the perfect segue to my next question, which you're talking about XR. Do
Mhm.
you see pixel streaming as sort of part of the whole XR family, or how does pixel streaming fit into XR for you?
Well, it does. I mean, if we're just talking about the putting on a headset, not everybody wants to do that. So I think it's very viable. I actually, as much as I love XR, as much as I, love my Meta Quest 3, I think it's a great product. I think most people still prefer using their mobile device or being on a flat screen device, like a laptop or whatever, to consume content. I think it's still the easiest way to do that. People, just the form factor of headsets right now, I mean, people aren't going to be in there for hours. I mean, it's just the truth. So when it comes down to the hardware, there's hardware challenges. Um, so I see them both. It's the use case and how you're using it, and everything in XR. We're beyond the hype curve. We're figuring out where it's settled into, where it works, where it needs to be. I know a lot of people talked about it as being kind of like to solve everything cool device that's coming up next. And we talked about the metaverse and we all stepped through that. And, we're still, it's all there, which is awesome. It's still being worked on and talked about, but a lot smaller, right? It's not the AI conversation we're having nowadays, but yeah, I'm excited about the both platforms. I think they're just the best case, where to use it. Um, that's what it
Awesome.
comes down to. Yeah.
And what do you think some of the use cases for your team will be for pixel streaming, or how do you see you using it in your workflow?
Yeah, sure. It's all about being able to distribute, right, or get it in the hands of our clients, or quickly into the hands of our remote workers. So we can collaborate, we can make those decisions together in a very quick and efficient way with the highest fidelity, highest quality possible.
Hmm.
Um, that's what it kind of boils down to for me.
And then do you see it being used both during the design process and as
Oh,
an end
absolutely,
deliverable?
absolutely. And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but talked about the white boxing, those discussions early on, being able to put something up, stream it, share it, get that quick feedback. Don't have the distractions of the colors and the materials, right? We're just talking about the physical space itself. And then being able to iterate, change, share again, and kind of move projects forward. So I see it throughout kind of the whole process. Definitely on collaboration, iteration, then moving into the final phase where it's presented as a final product. This is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to look and feel. And then sharing with the client like how potentially they could use it beyond just what we've done for them in more of a marketing, sales, presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and help them facilitate that.
And has your team tested or experimented exporting from Revit to Unreal Engine? Uh, does your team have sort of a pipeline or workflow in order to do that? And if you're doing that, is it specifically for pixel streaming to share it? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, we do. We're working on that right now. That's part of a pilot we're working on. So yes, the answer is yes. We're working on how to go from Revit Twin Motion and forward to Unreal, and then being able to pixel stream it, and or how would we distribute that? But pixel streaming is part of that cover. And then how do we use Cloud XR to do that? What does that look like? And that's just again, learning the keys to to the future or to making any agency relevant is to understand the technology. If you get through the whole process of the new workflow, the pilot, the MVP, and at the end of the day, if you decide like this isn't, we can't scale this isn't going to work for us, you can, as long as you communicate that the key learnings and you educate and train on the whys, you can't skip those parts, kind of the after parts when things fail. You got to share that and understanding where we're going to move to next.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and there's so many moving pieces right now, and it's kind of an exciting time for us because we're seeing adoption. People are doing, like what Canon Design is doing, where they are establishing these pipelines, and people are getting the vision. So it's an exciting time. I can't wait to see what you guys do, and the industry as a whole. Um, a lot more adoption these days with Unreal and Twinmotion.
yeah, and I know we got a couple minutes here, but I tell, the young people getting into the space, young people getting into creative, whether it's in marketing or whether it's, working in advertising, to learn game engine technology is just as important nowadays as, learning something like Adobe Creative Suite. You have to learn it. You have to learn how to design in it. So that's just part of, what makes platforms like you're more successful when you have people who understand what it takes to design and build for these platforms.
Amen, brother. That's exactly what I tell the younger generations as well. Game engines, game engines, game engines. Um, Chad, thank you so much for swinging by to speak with us today. Any last comments or parting thoughts that you'd like to
I
share?
I think I shared a lot of my wisdom. I don't know if there's any more to add. I really
Absolutely.
thank you for the opportunity, for allowing me to jump on and to share my thoughts and my ramblings. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute pleasure. I mean, you're clearly doing some very forward-thinking things, so it's an honor to have you on the show for you to share a
All
little
right.
bit. And thank you, everyone. This has been Quentin Anderson with Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next show. Chad, thanks again.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.